The pace of progress in AI, it feels almost breathtaking, doesn't it?
It really does.
We see these amazing new capabilities emerging, well, seemingly all the time. But what's really fascinating, I think, is the incredibly sophisticated infrastructure that actually powers all of this.
The nuts and bolts making it happen.
Exactly. The nuts and bolts, and that's precisely where we're diving in today.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be taking a close look at the first quarter 2025 earnings report from Astera Labs, that's ticker AALB.
Right.
And for those of you following the AI and cloud infrastructure space, well, Astera Labs is a critical semiconductor company. They specialize in these connectivity solutions that are absolutely essential.
Okay, let's unpack this then. For this deep dive, we've gathered quite a bit of info. We're looking at analyst recommendations from TradingView, several detailed analyses from Guru Focus on the earnings, a report from the Manila Times. We've even got the audio from their Q1 earnings call, and a Benzinga article with more analyst perspectives.
Quite the range of sources.
Yeah. So our goal today is really to cut through all of this, pull out the most important takeaways about Astera Labs' recent performance, and try to get a real sense of their future prospects, in this booming AI market.
And I think we'll uncover some pretty remarkable growth figures, but also maybe touch on some potential headwinds they might be facing.
Definitely. So where do we start? The Q1 numbers.
Let's do it. What's immediately striking is just the magnitude of the growth. So Q1 2025, Astera Labs reported a record $159.4 million in revenue.
Okay. Record revenue.
And this isn't just a small step up, it's 13% higher than the previous quarter.
Right.
And an astounding 144% jump year over year. That's according to Guru Focus and the Manila Times.
Wow, 144% year over year. That's huge.
It is. I mean, that kind of growth isn't just incremental. It really points to a fundamental acceleration in demand for what they do, right? Mirroring that AI adoption curve.
Makes sense. Their stuff is becoming indispensable.
Seems like it. And interestingly, this performance also smashed analysts' expectations. TradingView had noted the consensus was around $153.34 million. So a solid beat.
Okay, so a big headline number on revenue. But it wasn't just top-line growth, was it?
Yeah.
How did profitability look?
No, absolutely. Profitability was strong, too. On a GAAP basis, standard accounting rules, their net income hit $31.8 million. That works out to $1.18 per diluted share.
Got it.
And then looking at the non-GAAP figures, which, well, they often strip out things like stock-based comp to give maybe a clearer view of core operations.
Right, the operational picture.
Exactly. That non-GAAP net income was even higher, $59.6 million or 0.33 flights per share. And both of those, GAAP and non-GAAP, beat the forecasts.
And gross margin, that's always key for semiconductor companies.
It's very healthy. A GAAP gross margin came in at 74.9%. Really strong.
Okay, those are definitely robust figures across the board. So what's the engine here? What's driving this kind of impressive growth?
Well, at the highest level, the primary fuel is clearly just that massive ongoing demand for AI servers and the whole complex infrastructure needed to support them.
Right. The build-out continues.
It does. And more specifically, both their Aries product line that includes things like PCIe retimers and active cable modules.
Remind us what the retimers do again?
Yeah, think of PCIe retimers as signal boosters. They ensure reliable, high-speed data communication within servers, which is critical. So Aries did well, and also their Taurus Ethernet products saw significant revenue growth.
Okay.
And this is directly linked, as you'd expect, to the increasing need for high-performance connectivity in AI servers and data centers. TradingView highlighted this, and they talked about it on the earnings call, too.
And are they just selling the current stuff, or are new products starting to contribute? I thought I saw something about new shipments.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yes, they also mentioned initial shipments of their Scorpio P series and the Aries 6 retimers.
Aries 6, so that's the next generation.
Exactly. These represent their newer technologies designed for even higher speeds and bandwidth needed for, the next wave of AI systems.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. That strong Q1 performance. It wasn't just luck, right? What specific factors really push these results?
Right, not just luck. As we touched on, the big one is that strong demand for AI servers and data centers generally.
Sure.
But drilling down, TradingView pointed to strong momentum across all three of their main product families, Aries, Taurus, and also Leo.
And Leo is their CXL line, correct? Compute
Mhm.
Express Link.
That's the one. CXL, it's a newer standard for high-speed communication, especially sharing memory between CPUs, GPUs, accelerators. Really important for AI workloads dealing with massive data sets.
Right, getting data to the processors fast.
Exactly. So while Aries and Taurus are the big revenue drivers now, Leo is sort of in that pre-production phase as customers evaluate it.
Okay, what else?
Another significant contributor, mentioned by TradingView and on the call, was their Taurus 400 gigabit Ethernet solutions.
400 gig? That's becoming standard for AI fabrics.
Increasingly, yes. And they're seeing adoption not just in specialized AI infrastructure, but also in more general purpose compute environments, too.
Ah, interesting. So it's bleeding over.
Seems that way. And finally, those initial shipments of the expanding Scorpio Smart Fabric switch family, those also helped in Q1. These switches are key for connecting lots of AI accelerators together efficiently within a rack.
Got it. So with this strong momentum, their outlook must be pretty positive, right? What are they guiding for Q2?
Yeah, their forecast for the second quarter definitely points to continued growth. They expect revenue between $170 million and $175 million. Several sources confirmed that range.
Okay, so another step up sequentially. That signals pretty strong ongoing demand.
It does. And they're also guiding for GAAP gross margin around 74%, so pretty much in line with Q1.
And earnings per share.
GAAP diluted EPS expected between $0.10 and $0.11, and non-GAAP diluted EPS projected between $0.32 and 33 cents. Pretty steady there compared to Q1's non-GAAP.
So Aries and Taurus continue to be the workhorses driving growth.
That's the expectation based on their conference call. But what's particularly interesting is the expected sequential growth in revenue from Scorpio.
Ah, the fabric switches.
Exactly. As these custom GPU-based rack systems start ramping up more widely, Scorpio is set to become a much bigger piece of the pie. They actually said on the call they expect Scorpio to be at least 10% of total revenue for the full year 2025.
Wow, okay, that's a significant shift in the mix.
It really underscores their growing presence right inside those advanced AI racks.
Okay, so moving beyond just the financials, what were some of the key strategic moves or developments they highlighted? This tells us where they're headed.
Right. This is about positioning for the future. A big one is the full production ramp of their PCIe Gen 6 connectivity portfolio.
PCI Gen 6, that's the cutting edge for inside-the-box connectivity.
Absolutely. PCIe is like that data highway inside the computer, and each generation adds lanes and ups the speed limit, critical for AI data volumes. So their Gen 6 portfolio includes the Scorpio P-series switches, Aries 6 smart retimers, Aries 6 smart cable modules,
A whole suite of products.
and they've also introduced Aries 6 PCIe smart gearboxes and are even talking about plans for PCIe 6 over optics technology.
Optics, so connecting further out.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Hints at capabilities for even larger scale systems down the line. PCIe 6 is a major speed bump.
And they're showing this off.
They are.
Yeah.
They unveiled a PCIe 6-ready reference design using NVIDIA's Blackwell platform, specifically featuring their Scorpio switches. It's basically a blueprint for customers.
This helps customers adopt faster.
Yeah.
Makes sense, like they're working closely with the big players.
Very closely. Another key area is their role in ratifying the UA-Link 200G 1.0 specification.
UA-Link, we're hearing a lot about that for AI clusters.
Yeah, it's a really important low-latency, high-bandwidth interconnect designed specifically for linking AI compute nodes together. Think GPU to GPU communication in large pods.
Right.
Astera Labs sees this as a huge opportunity, potentially a multi-billion-dollar market by 2029, according to their call.
So they're betting big on UA-Link becoming a standard.
It certainly seems like a key part of their strategy. And to back all this up, they've expanded their cloud-scale interop lab.
Interoperability testing.
Crucial.
Crucial. This lets them rigorously test how their PCIe 6 stuff works with other critical components, like NVIDIA's Blackwell GPUs, Micron SSDs. They even demonstrated this N10 PCIe 6 interop recently.
That kind of proof point must build customer confidence.
You'd think so. They also added some firepower to their board, appointing Dr. Craig Barrett, who has a deep background in networking and semiconductors.
Okay. Any other interesting product moves?
Well, the Aries 6 PCIe Smart Gearbox is notable. It essentially acts as a bridge.
Yeah, it lets the new super-fast PCIe 6 devices talk smoothly to the existing PCIe 5 ecosystem. Helps with the transition. And apparently, multiple hyperscalers, the big cloud providers, are already designing it in.
That's strong validation.
It is. And finally, that demonstration of PCIe 6 over optics, again, points to their vision for scaling AI accelerators across whole racks using light instead of copper for longer reaches.
So a lot of innovation, strong growth, but it can't all be smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
Were there any challenges or concerns mentioned in the reports?
No, you're right. Despite the impressive performance, there are things to watch. TradingView noted their stock hasn't kept pace with the broader tech and semi-sectors this year to date.
Why is that?
Initially, there were concerns about potentially lower growth margins because they're shifting towards more hardware-based solutions. Also, just general market weakness and maybe some tariff fears.
But wait, didn't you say their Q1 gross margin was really strong? 74.9%.
Exactly. So it's a bit of a disconnect. Maybe those initial margin concerns were overblown, or maybe the market is still trying to figure out the longer-term impact of their strategy.
Interesting. So the market might be lagging the reality a bit.
It's possible. TradingView also flagged that the stock looks, well, maybe overvalued based on its forward price-to-sales ratio compared to others in the sector.
Valuation concerns.
Yeah.
Always tricky with high-growth tech.
Always. And then there's the constant factor of increasing competition. The AI and cloud markets are hot, and they're up against some very large established semiconductor giants.
Yeah, it's definitely a competitive space. No shortage of players wanting a piece of the AI pie.
For sure. They also mentioned on the call the impact of restrictions on shipments to China, specifically affecting their retimer products when they're attached to third-party merchant GPUs.
So GPs you can buy off the shelf, not custom ones.
Right. But they did clarify that the overall revenue hit from these restrictions is currently less than 10%.
Okay, so maybe manageable for now.
Seems so. And lastly, just the usual challenge for everyone in this industry, navigating the shifting macroeconomic landscape, policy changes like tariffs, export rules. It's complex.
Definitely a lot to juggle. So given all that, what are the analysts saying now? Is there a consensus view?
It seems a bit mixed, actually. Northland Capital Markets is pretty bullish. They kept an outperform rating, slapped a $120 price target on it, and said they expect Astera Labs to outgrow its peers in 2025.
Outgrow peers, that's a strong call.
Yeah, they're forecasting a hefty 65% revenue bump this calendar year, driven by new AI products and these custom rack solutions we talked about. They even estimated Astra's total addressable market could hit $12 billion by 2028.
Wow, $12 billion TAM, that's optimistic.
Very optimistic, but it shows the potential they see. On the other hand, Zacks Investment Research has a hold rating.
Hold? So more cautious.
Yeah, basically suggesting maybe wait for a better entry point. So you have this divergent, strong belief in the growth story versus maybe some caution on valuation or near-term headwinds.
A classic growth stock dilemma. Okay, so what about Astera Labs' own big picture? What's their overarching strategy, their long-term vision?
Their main vision, laid out on the earnings call, is really to be the go-to provider for connectivity solutions for the entire AI server rack.
The whole rack.
The whole rack. Supporting both custom chips, ASICs, and those merchant GPUs we mentioned. The focus is on comprehensive rack-scale connectivity.
So not just selling individual chips.
Right. It includes their silicon hardware, obviously, but also their Cosmos software suite. This software is key. It's designed to boost performance, improve manageability, run diagnostics, gather telemetry, all at the rack level.
So adding a software layer for value add. Makes sense.
Exactly. They're aiming for a more integrated, optimized solution for these really complex AI setups, not just selling parts.
And are customers buying into this vision?
They say they're seeing strong customer traction, especially with the Scorpio fabric switches, and growing opportunities both in dedicated AI connectivity and also in that general purpose compute space.
Right.
Their strategy involves hitting all the key interconnect points, using PCIe and UA-Link for scale-up within the system, Ethernet for scale-out connecting systems, PCIe again for peripherals, and CXL for memory, all tied together with that Cosmos software.
A comprehensive approach. Okay, let's try and wrap this up. If we distill everything down, what are the main takeaways from this deep dive into Astera Labs Q1?
I think the key points are pretty clear. First, Astera Labs knocked it out of the park in Q1 2025. Revenue and earnings way ahead of expectations.
Check. Strong numbers.
Second, this growth is being overwhelmingly fueled by the AI infrastructure boom and their critical role in providing the high-speed connections needed.
Right, they're right in the sweet spot.
Third, their strategic positioning looks really solid. They're expanding their product portfolio rapidly, especially with PCIe Gen 6, and they're deeply involved in the emerging UA-Link standard. This suggests they're well-placed for future AI market growth.
So, strategically sound. And the potential bumps.
Well, they still face intense competition and those broader economic and geopolitical uncertainties. It's not a guaranteed win, but, the momentum right now seems very strong.
You mentioned earlier that trend towards custom AI racks using merchant GPUs. That really stood out to me.
Yeah, it's a really interesting development. It means potentially more Astera Labs content going into each rack. Their Scorpio X series specifically seems positioned to be a key part of these designs. They call it an anchor socket.
An anchor socket.
Yeah, it just highlights how the way AI infrastructure is being built is constantly evolving, creating these new, potentially larger opportunities for companies like Astera Labs that provide these specialized interconnects.
Okay, so as we finish up, what's the big question we should leave our listeners thinking about? The provocative thought.
Well, given this incredible pace of innovation, both in the AI models themselves and the hardware, the interconnects powering them, what's the next critical bottleneck going to be in AI infrastructure?
Where will the next pinch point appear?
Exactly. And how will companies like Astera Labs need to keep adapting and evolving to solve it? It's also worth thinking about that balance, between standardized solutions versus highly customized hardware in the future of AI. It's a fascinating space to watch.